The early morning sun streamed through the tall windows of Adelaide Cottage, casting golden rays across the breakfast table where Prince William and Princess Catherine sat with their three children. George, the eldest at 9 years old, carefully buttered his toast while his younger siblings Charlotte and Louis whispered excitedly about the special day ahead. Today was different from any other day in their young lives. They would attend the coronation ceremony, witnessing history unfold before their eyes. Catherine smoothed her navy blue dress and glanced at William, who was reviewing the day's schedule one final time. The weight of the occasion wasn't lost on either parent. This coronation represented not just a ceremonial passing of power, but a moment that would define their children's understanding of duty, tradition, and their own roles within the monarchy. The couple had spent weeks preparing their children for this day, explaining the significance of the ceremony in terms they could understand. George, as the future heir, carried a particular responsibility. His parents had gently explained that one day, he too might experience such a ceremony, though they were careful not to burden him with the full weight of his destiny. Instead, they focused on teaching him about respect, tradition, and the importance of supporting family during significant moments. Charlotte, ever observant and mature for her 7 years, had asked thoughtful questions about the crown jewels and what it meant to serve the country. Little Louis, at just 5 years old, was mostly excited about wearing his special outfit and seeing all the important people. The morning routine felt both familiar and extraordinary. Catherine helped Charlotte with her hair, braiding it elegantly while explaining how today they would represent not just themselves, but their entire family's commitment to the crown. William assisted the boys with their formal attire, teaching them how to stand properly and when to bow. These weren't just lessons in etiquette, they were foundational moments in shaping future leaders. As the family prepared to leave Adelaide Cottage, servants and security personnel moved with practiced efficiency. The children's faces glowed with excitement and nervous energy. George carried himself with newfound maturity, understanding that today marked another step in his journey toward his eventual role. Charlotte clutched a small book about royal ceremonies that she had been reading, eager to see if reality matched the pictures and descriptions. Louis bounced on his toes, his enthusiasm infectious and pure. The drive to Westminster Abbey would take them through streets lined with thousands of well-wishers. Catherine had prepared the children for the crowds, explaining how people from around the world had come to witness this historic moment. She reminded them to wave and smile, understanding that their presence would bring joy to those who had traveled great distances. This wasn't just about duty, it was about connection with the people they would one day serve. William gripped the steering wheel, his mind racing through the day's events. As second in line to the throne, his presence at the coronation carried enormous significance. But, as a father, his primary concern was ensuring his children felt secure and confident throughout the lengthy ceremony. He had studied the detailed timeline, knowing exactly when they would need to sit still, when they could relax slightly, and when their attention would be most crucial. The conversation in the car remained light and encouraging. Catherine pointed out landmarks along the way, turning the journey into an educational experience. She spoke about the history of Westminster Abbey, how many royal ceremonies had taken place there, and how they were becoming part of that continuing story. The children asked questions about everything they saw, the decorations lining the streets, the flags from different Commonwealth nations, and the elaborate security preparations. As they approached Westminster Abbey, the magnitude of the event became clear. Television crews from around the world had positioned themselves strategically, ready to capture every moment. Dignitaries from numerous countries were arriving in formal processions, each representing their nation's relationship with the monarchy. The children pressed their faces to the windows, amazed by the spectacle unfolding around them. George straightened his shoulders as he recognized the responsibility of the moment. His parents had taught him that being royal meant serving others, and today he would demonstrate that understanding. Charlotte practiced her curtsy one final time, determined to execute it perfectly when the moment came. Louis simply marveled at all the fancy cars and beautiful clothes, his childlike wonder providing a refreshing perspective on the formal proceedings. The security detail communicated through earpieces, coordinating their movements with military precision. Every aspect of the day had been planned and rehearsed, but William and Catherine knew that with young children, flexibility remained essential. They had prepared backup plans for potential disruptions, understanding that their children's comfort and well-being took priority over protocol when necessary. Catherine checked her appearance one final time in a compact mirror, not from vanity, but from understanding that her image would be broadcast worldwide. Every detail mattered, from her jewelry choices to her children's posture. Yet beneath the formal requirements lay genuine family love and support. This wasn't just a royal obligation. It was a family experience that would bond them together through shared history. The car slowed as they approached the Abbey entrance. Staff members stood ready to assist with their arrival, while photographers prepared to capture the moment the Wales family emerged from their vehicle. William took a deep breath and turned to his family. His words were simple but profound. They were ready to witness history and play their part in the continuing story of the monarchy. The children nodded solemnly, understanding that their childhood was intertwined with something much larger than themselves, yet feeling secure in their parents' guidance and love. As they stepped out of the car, the sounds of the crowd filled the air, cheers, applause, and expressions of support from people who had waited hours for this moment. The Wales family stood together, united in purpose and strengthened by their bond, ready to take their places in one of the most significant ceremonies of their generation. Westminster Abbey stood before them like a magnificent stone cathedral, its Gothic spires reaching toward the cloudy London sky. As the Wales family walked through the ancient doors, they entered a world transformed by ceremony and tradition. The Abbey had been decorated with flowers from across the Commonwealth, creating a tapestry of colors and scents that reflected the global nature of the monarchy. Golden banners hung from the stone columns, and hundreds of candles flickered in ornate holders, casting dancing shadows across the medieval architecture. George held his father's hand as they made their way through the Abbey, his eyes wide with wonder at the transformation of the familiar building. He had visited Westminster Abbey before during family outings, but today it felt completely different, alive with purpose and heavy with history. The young prince could feel the weight of centuries of tradition surrounding him, from the stone tombs of ancient kings and queens beneath their feet to the magnificent stained glass windows that told stories of faith and monarchy stretching back nearly 1,000 years. Charlotte walked beside her mother, her small hand tucked securely in Catherine's gloved palm. The princess had studied pictures of previous coronations in preparation for this day, but nothing had prepared her for the actual experience. The Abbey buzzed with quiet conversation as distinguished guests found their assigned seats. She recognized some faces from state dinners and official photographs, prime ministers, presidents, and royal family members from around the world, all gathered to witness this historic moment. Little Louis maintained his characteristic enthusiasm, though his parents could see him beginning to understand the solemnity of the occasion. His eyes darted from the elaborate floral arrangements to the ceremonial guards standing at attention, taking in every detail with the unfiltered curiosity of a 5-year-old. Catherine had prepared small, quiet activities for him in case the ceremony became too lengthy, understanding that even the most well-behaved child might struggle with the extended formal proceedings. The seating arrangements reflected centuries of protocol and diplomatic consideration. William and Catherine had studied the placement carefully, knowing that their positions represented not just their personal status but the relationships between nations and the hierarchy within the royal family. They guided their children to their designated seats in the front section, where they would have clear views of the ceremony, while remaining close enough to provide support and guidance throughout the long service. As they settled into their seats, the children looked around at the other attendees with natural curiosity. The Abbey filled with a remarkable cross-section of global leadership, from Commonwealth prime ministers to European royalty, from religious leaders to military commanders. Each guest represented a different aspect of the relationships and responsibilities that came with monarchy. Catherine pointed out some of the more familiar faces to her children, helping them understand the international significance of what they were witnessing. The organ began playing soft musical selections, filling the vast space with rich, resonant tones that seemed to vibrate through the ancient stones. George sat up straighter, remembering his father's advice about posture and attention during important ceremonies. Charlotte folded her hands in her lap, practicing the patience her mother had taught her. Louis swung his legs slightly, his energy contained but visible, bringing smiles to nearby guests who appreciated his authentic childlike presence amid the formal proceedings. William surveyed the congregation, recognizing many faces from his years of royal duties and diplomatic engagements. Each person present represented connections built over decades of careful relationship building, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and shared values. The coronation wasn't just a British ceremony. It was a celebration of the Commonwealth family and the broader network of nations that maintained ties to the monarchy. His children were witnessing the culmination of diplomatic work that spanned generations. Catherine observed her children's reactions with maternal pride and slight nervousness. She knew the eyes of the world were upon them, that every gesture and expression would be analyzed and discussed. Yet her primary focus remained on ensuring her children felt comfortable and secure. She had practiced various scenarios with them: what to do if they needed the restroom, how to signal if they felt overwhelmed, and simple breathing techniques to help them stay calm during the lengthy proceedings. The Abbey's acoustics carried whispered conversations and the rustle of formal clothing, creating a gentle background murmur that somehow enhanced rather than disrupted the sacred atmosphere. Photographers positioned in designated areas captured the gathering crowd, their cameras documenting not just the official ceremony, but the human moments, children's expressions of wonder, elderly dignitaries sharing quiet conversations, and the careful choreography of royal protocol. Staff members moved discreetly throughout the Abbey, ensuring every detail proceeded according to plan. They carried programs, assisted elderly guests to their seats, and maintained the careful timing that such ceremonies required. William noticed their professional efficiency with appreciation, understanding how many people worked behind the scenes to create the seamless experience that guests would remember. These unsung heroes enabled the royal family to focus on their ceremonial roles while ensuring practical needs were met. As the time for the actual ceremony approached, a subtle change swept through the congregation. Conversations grew quieter, postures became more formal, and attention turned toward the altar where the ancient rituals would soon unfold. The children sensed this shift and adjusted their behavior accordingly, demonstrating the social awareness their parents had carefully cultivated. They understood that something momentous was about to begin, even if they couldn't fully grasp its historical significance. The sound of approaching trumpets echoed from outside the Abbey, signaling the beginning of the ceremonial procession. George straightened his tie one final time, Charlotte checked her dress, and Louis looked to his parents for reassurance. William and Catherine exchanged a meaningful glance, knowing they were about to witness and participate in one of the most significant events of their lifetime. Their family was ready to play their part in this ancient ceremony, carrying forward traditions that connected them to centuries of royal history, while creating new memories for future generations. The great doors of Westminster Abbey prepared to admit the ceremonial procession, and the Wales family, along with hundreds of other distinguished guests, stood ready to witness the crowning of a new monarch, understanding that they were not just observers, but participants in the continuing story of constitutional monarchy and democratic tradition. The ceremonial procession entered Westminster Abbey with magnificent pageantry that took everyone's breath away. The sound of trumpets filled the ancient space, announcing the arrival of the principal figures in this historic ceremony. George, Charlotte, and Louis watched with rapt attention as elaborately dressed officials carrying ceremonial items made their way down the central aisle. Each object, the orb, the scepter, the sword of state, represented centuries of royal authority and constitutional tradition, carefully preserved and passed down through generations of monarchs. The children had learned about these ceremonial items during their preparation sessions with their parents, but seeing them in person created an entirely different experience. The St. Edward's crown, perhaps the most significant piece, gleamed with precious stones and gold craftsmanship that reflected the skilled work of medieval artisans. Charlotte whispered quietly to her mother about the crown's weight, having read that it required considerable strength to wear during the lengthy ceremony. Catherine smiled and nodded, impressed by her daughter's attention to detail and genuine interest in the proceedings. William felt a deep sense of connection to the moment, understanding that his children were witnessing the same ceremony that he had observed decades earlier, and that their children might one day witness when he himself took on greater responsibilities. The continuity of the institution struck him powerfully, how each generation passed on not just titles and duties, but values, traditions, and a commitment to public service that transcended individual personalities and political changes. The Archbishop began the ancient words of the coronation service, his voice carrying clearly throughout the Abbey thanks to carefully positioned microphones and speakers. The language was formal and traditional, filled with religious references and constitutional promises that dated back centuries. George listened intently, trying to understand the meaning behind the elaborate phrases. His parents had explained that coronations were both religious ceremonies and political events, where the new monarch promised to serve the people while asking for divine guidance in fulfilling those responsibilities. Louis shifted in his seat, his 5-year-old attention span beginning to reach its limits despite his best efforts to remain still. Catherine discreetly provided him with a small fidget toy, understanding that expecting perfect stillness from such a young child during a multi-hour ceremony was unrealistic. The toy kept his hands occupied while allowing him to continue watching the proceedings, demonstrating the practical parenting wisdom that Catherine applied even during the most formal occasions. The music throughout the ceremony showcased some of the finest choral and orchestral traditions in British culture. The choir's voices soared through the abbey's vaulted ceiling, performing pieces that had been specially commissioned for the occasion alongside traditional hymns and anthems that had graced royal ceremonies for generations. Charlotte, who had been taking piano lessons and developing an appreciation for music, listened with particular attention to the complex harmonies and orchestral arrangements. As the ceremony progressed through its various stages, the Wales family observed the careful choreography that brought together religious tradition, political symbolism, and personal commitment. Each movement had been rehearsed countless times, yet the actual event carried an emotional weight that no practice session could replicate. The anointing with holy oil, performed in private beneath a canopy, represented the most sacred aspect of the ceremony, connecting the new monarch to spiritual authority that transcended earthly power. The moment of actual crowning created a profound silence throughout the abbey, broken only by the archbishop's ceremonial words. George understood he was watching someone accept the same responsibilities that would one day rest on his own shoulders. The weight of that future responsibility didn't frighten him. His parents had taught him to view royal duty as an opportunity to serve others rather than a burden to bear. Still, seeing the ceremony helped him understand the solemnity and significance of the role he would eventually inherit. William noticed how the ceremony balanced ancient tradition with contemporary relevance. The words spoken had been used for centuries, yet they addressed timeless human needs for leadership, service, and moral guidance. The new monarch's promises to govern according to law, to exercise mercy, and to protect the vulnerable resonated just as strongly in modern times as they had when first spoken hundreds of years ago. Catherine observed the guests throughout the ceremony, noting how people from vastly different backgrounds and cultures found common meaning in the shared experience. Commonwealth representatives, European royalty, diplomatic officials, and religious leaders all participated in the same ancient ritual, demonstrating the unifying power of tradition and ceremony. Her children were learning that their family's role extended far beyond Britain itself, encompassing relationships with people around the world. The presentation of the regalia continued with each item carrying specific symbolic meaning. The orb represented the Christian world, the scepter signified royal power and justice, and the ring symbolized the marriage between monarch and people. These weren't merely decorative objects, but physical representations of abstract concepts that had guided constitutional monarchy for centuries. The children learned that symbols could carry powerful meanings, helping people understand complex ideas through tangible representations. The congregation's responses during certain portions of the ceremony created moments of collective participation that included everyone present. When called upon to acknowledge the new monarch, hundreds of voices joined together in unified response, creating a powerful demonstration of democratic consent and popular support. George, Charlotte, and Louis added their young voices to this ancient chorus, becoming active participants rather than mere observers. As the ceremony moved toward its conclusion, the atmosphere in the abbey shifted slightly from formal solemnity to celebration and joy. The successful completion of the ancient ritual marked not an ending, but a beginning, the start of a new reign, new opportunities for service, and new chapters in the long story of constitutional monarchy. The Wales family had witnessed history in the making, while contributing their own presence and support to this remarkable moment. The final musical selections filled the abbey with triumphant sounds that seemed to lift everyone's spirits after the lengthy formal proceedings. The children smiled more freely now, sensing that the most demanding portions of the ceremony had concluded successfully. They had demonstrated remarkable patience and maturity, proving to their parents and to observers worldwide that the next generation of royals was being prepared thoughtfully for their future responsibilities. The ceremonial procession out of Westminster Abbey created an entirely different energy than the formal entrance had hours earlier. Now crowned and anointed, the new monarch walked with obvious confidence and joy, the heavy ceremonial robes flowing behind in magnificent splendor. The Wales family joined the organized departure, their children having successfully completed their first major royal ceremony with grace and dignity that made their parents enormously proud. George walked with noticeably improved posture, his experience during the ceremony having taught him practical lessons about royal bearing and public presentation. The young prince had observed how small adjustments in stance and expression could convey respect, attention, and appropriate solemnity. These weren't abstract concepts anymore, but practical skills he had practiced and refined during the actual event. His parents noticed his increased confidence and maturity, understanding that significant experiences often catalyzed meaningful personal growth. Charlotte practically glowed with excitement and accomplishment, having successfully executed her curtsy at the appropriate moment and maintained excellent behavior throughout the lengthy proceedings. The princess had prepared extensively for this day, and the successful completion of her responsibilities filled her with justified pride. She had proven to herself and others that she could handle significant public duties, building confidence that would serve her well in future royal engagements. Louis surprised everyone with his resilience and adaptability, having managed to stay engaged and appropriately behave far longer than anyone had expected from such a young child. His natural charm and authentic reactions had actually enhanced the family's public image, demonstrating that the royal children were real, relatable young people rather than overly formal miniature adults. His parents appreciated how his genuine personality had shone through without disrupting the ceremonial proceedings. The exit from Westminster Abbey revealed thousands of people lining the streets, many having waited for hours to catch a glimpse of the royal family and other ceremony participants. The sound was overwhelming: cheers, applause, singing, and expressions of joy from people representing countless nationalities and backgrounds. Catherine had prepared the children for the crowds, but the actual experience exceeded even her detailed descriptions. William waved to the crowd while keeping a protective eye on his children, understanding that their first major public appearance would be remembered and discussed for years to come. The balance between public duties and family protection required constant attention, especially when young children were involved. He felt immense pride watching his sons and daughter handle the attention with such composure and natural warmth. The journey from Westminster Abbey to Buckingham Palace took them through the heart of London, past landmarks that told the story of British history and royal tradition. The children pressed their faces to the car windows, amazed by the decorations, the crowds, and the celebratory atmosphere that filled the streets. Every building seemed to display flags, banners, or special decorations created for the coronation, transforming familiar London into a festival of royal celebration. Catherine pointed out significant buildings and monuments along the route, continuing the educational aspect of the day's experience. She explained how the mall had been designed specifically for royal processions, how the various royal parks connected to create green spaces in the busy city, and how the layout of central London reflected centuries of royal history and urban planning. The children learned that their family's heritage was literally built into the geography of the capital city. The crowds along the procession route represented an extraordinary cross-section of British society and international visitors. Families with young children waved from sidewalks. Elderly citizens recalled previous coronations they had witnessed, and tourists from around the world captured the moment with cameras and phones. The diversity of the crowd demonstrated the broad appeal of royal tradition across different generations, backgrounds, and cultures. Street performers, musicians, and artists had positioned themselves along the route, creating an impromptu festival atmosphere that complemented the formal ceremony. The children enjoyed seeing the creative expressions of support, from elaborate costumes to musical performances to artistic displays. These spontaneous demonstrations of celebration showed how royal events could inspire creativity and community participation beyond the official ceremonies. Security personnel maintained their professional vigilance while allowing the celebratory atmosphere to flourish. The coordination required to protect the royal family while enabling public participation involved hundreds of officers, military personnel, and support staff working seamlessly together. The children observed this complex operation with interest, beginning to understand the extensive planning and resources required to support their public activities. The approach to Buckingham Palace revealed even larger crowds gathered in front of the iconic building, many having camped overnight to secure optimal viewing positions. The palace itself had been decorated for the occasion, with special banners and displays that highlighted the historic nature of the day. The familiar building looked transformed, elevated from daily royal residence to the center of national celebration. As their car passed through the palace gates, the children felt a sense of homecoming mixed with accomplishment. They had successfully completed their first major public duty, representing their family and their future roles with dignity and charm. The contrast between the public ceremony and the approaching private family time created a natural transition from formal responsibilities to personal relationships and reflection. The palace staff greeted them with warm smiles and obvious relief that the day had proceeded so successfully. Behind the scenes, dozens of people had worked for months to coordinate the complex logistics of the coronation and associated events. The children learned to appreciate the team effort required to support royal activities, understanding that their public roles depended on many dedicated professionals working together. William and Catherine took a moment to congratulate their children on their excellent behavior and mature participation in such a significant event. The day had exceeded their expectations in terms of both the ceremonial impact and their children's positive response to the experience. The family had successfully navigated their first major public ceremony together, creating memories and learning experiences that would influence their approach to future royal duties. As they prepared to appear on the Buckingham Palace balcony for the traditional public appearance, the children felt a mixture of excitement and fatigue. The day had been long and demanding, but also rewarding and memorable. They were ready for the final public moment before returning to the relative privacy of family time and reflection on their remarkable shared experience. The Buckingham Palace balcony appearance represented the culmination of the Coronation Day celebrations, bringing the royal family together for the traditional public acknowledgement that concluded major royal ceremonies. As the Wales family prepared to step onto the famous balcony, they could hear the roar of the massive crowd gathered in front of the palace, their voices creating a wall of sound that demonstrated the public's enthusiastic support for the monarchy and excitement about the historic day they had all shared. George straightened his jacket one final time, understanding that this balcony appearance would create some of the most widely circulated photographs of the entire day. The young prince had learned from his parents that royal appearances were about more than just showing up. They represented opportunities to connect with people, to demonstrate unity and stability, and to show appreciation for public support. His serious expression reflected his growing understanding of these responsibilities. Charlotte checked her hair and smoothed her dress, excited about appearing before such a large crowd, but also nervous about the attention and scrutiny that would accompany the moment. The princess had watched videos of previous balcony appearances during her preparation for the coronation, studying how royal family members positioned themselves when they waved and how they interacted with each other while maintaining appropriate dignity. She was ready to apply these lessons during her own first major balcony moment. Louis bounced slightly on his toes, his excitement about the crowd and the special nature of the day overriding any fatigue from the lengthy ceremony. The youngest Wales child had maintained remarkable composure throughout the coronation proceedings, but his natural energy and enthusiasm were beginning to surface as the formal requirements relaxed. His parents appreciated his authentic reactions, knowing that his genuine personality would endear him to the public. William and Catherine exchanged meaningful glances as they prepared to lead their children onto the balcony, both recognizing the significance of this moment for their family's public image and their children's royal development. They had successfully navigated their first major ceremony as a family unit, demonstrating their ability to balance parental responsibilities with royal duties. The balcony appearance would showcase this unity to the world, creating lasting images that would represent their family's commitment to public service. The sound of the crowd intensified as the balcony doors opened, and the Wales family stepped into view of the thousands of people gathered below. The immediate response was overwhelming: cheers, applause, and expressions of joy that seemed to echo off the palace walls and surrounding buildings. The children had experienced crowd enthusiasm during their arrival and departure from Westminster Abbey, but the concentrated energy of this massive gathering created an entirely different level of public engagement. George waved confidently to the crowd, his movements showing the poise and natural grace that his parents had worked to develop through careful guidance and practice. The future king demonstrated an instinctive understanding of how to acknowledge the crowd's enthusiasm while maintaining the dignity appropriate to his position. His smile appeared genuine and warm, connecting with individuals in the crowd while addressing the massive gathering as a whole. Charlotte's wave was perfectly executed, reflecting the hours of practice she had devoted to royal etiquette and public presentation. The princess had studied how to acknowledge crowds effectively, learning that the royal wave was designed to be visible from great distances while appearing natural and friendly. Her bright smile and confident posture demonstrated her growing comfort with public attention and her understanding of her role in royal family dynamics. Louis provided the most spontaneous and endearing moments of the balcony appearance, his uninhibited enthusiasm creating genuine smiles among crowd members and viewers worldwide. The young prince's authentic reactions, pointing at interesting sights in the crowd, expressing amazement at the number of people, and maintaining his characteristic energy, humanized the royal family and reminded everyone that they were real people participating in extraordinary circumstances. The family's positioning on the balcony reflected careful consideration of protocol, photography, and family dynamics. William and Catherine flanked their children, providing both support and subtle guidance while allowing each child to have individual moments of interaction with the crowd. The arrangement created natural opportunities for both family group shots and individual character moments that would satisfy media requirements while respecting the children's varying comfort levels with public attention. Catherine's maternal instincts remained alert throughout the appearance, monitoring her children's energy levels, comfort, and behavior while maintaining her own public composure. She had learned to balance protective parenting with royal duties, ensuring that her children felt secure and supported while meeting the public's expectations for royal accessibility and engagement. Her gentle touches and encouraging smiles provided constant reassurance to her children. William surveyed the crowd with appreciation and slight amazement at the turnout and enthusiasm displayed by so many people. The prince understood that this level of public support represented both an honor and a responsibility. People had invested time, energy, and emotional commitment in supporting the royal family, creating expectations that required careful consideration and appropriate response. The balcony appearance allowed the family to acknowledge and reciprocate this public investment. The traditional flyover by the Royal Air Force created a spectacular conclusion to the balcony appearance, with military aircraft creating precise formations against the London sky, while the crowd below cheered and pointed upward. The children were mesmerized by the display, their faces showing wonder and excitement that reminded everyone of their youth despite their mature behavior throughout the day's events. The flyover represented the connection between royal tradition and national institutions. As the balcony appearance concluded and the family prepared to return inside the palace, each child had successfully completed their first major public royal duty. They had demonstrated poise, warmth, and authentic personality while maintaining appropriate dignity and respect for the occasion. Their parents felt enormous pride in their children's performance and growth throughout the demanding but rewarding day. The return to private family space after hours of public ceremony created a natural opportunity for reflection and celebration. The children could finally relax completely, sharing their thoughts and reactions to the extraordinary day they had experienced together. They had witnessed history, participated in ancient traditions, and taken important steps in their own development as future representatives of the royal family. The coronation day had proven that the Wales family could successfully balance their private relationships with their public responsibilities, creating positive memories and learning experiences while fulfilling their ceremonial duties. The children had emerged from their first major royal ceremony with increased confidence, deeper understanding of their heritage, and stronger bonds with their parents and each other, prepared for the continuing journey of royal life and public service that lay ahead of them.